Welcome to the weekly shir, the Zera Shimshon. I hope you enjoyed this. It's Parshas BaHaaloscha in Eretz Yisrael, so I will say this just in case you want to hear it. And I know you'll eventually catch up sometime in the future, near future. This is a very nice piece, a very interesting piece about the concepts that we don't have shaychus to too much because we kind of eat food the way everybody else eats food. So, but in the Dordeya, they ate the man, and they had special connection to God through that. So we'll talk about this. The pasuk says in this week's parsha, in Parshas BaHaaloscha, "Ha'safsuf asher b'kirboy, his asuf taiva v'yashvu yivku gam b'nei Yisrael v'yamru mi yochilenu basar." So the asaftuv was really the Erev Rav. Okay, they sat and the rabble rousers in their midst desired, and they sat and cried. And also the Bnei Israel. Now they got involved also. And they cried also, and they said, who will feed us meat? So what do they want meat for? Okay, the Zera Shimshon says, Yesh l'seis tam lama oisa dor dafka asra kadosh baruch basar taiva. Why did that generation specifically, that God forbade them to have basar taiva, which means it's not meat that was designated for korbanos or anything. It was just regular old flesh that you buy at the butcher. So, I know it sounds bad. It's basar tava. It's like meat of desire. Okay. So it says, Ma shelo yosser l'doros habayim. Why didn't he prohibit it at any other our generations? Why did all the next generations he didn't prohibit it? Only the Dordeya he prohibited. Since they were privileged to see God face to face at Har Sinai, to listen to his voice, it's not fitting that they should have, when they die, that the worms and the bugs should take over their carcass. Okay, Moshe Omer Chazal, and that's a Pirkei de Rabbi Lesson, Perik Hamem Aleph. Somebody wants to look it up. It says before that they weren't eaten up by the worms after they died. Therefore, he didn't want them to eat a lot of meat. This not like it says in Pirkei Avos, marbe basar, marbe rima. First Mishnah. Barak hitir lahem achilas basar hakadashim. He permitted them to eat the holy meat from the temple, from the Mishkan, right, that was shechted. Shahub davar kadosh ve'eno yotze l'chulin. So this is something that's holy. It doesn't go out to regular weekday. K'moshe kosva mekubolim. And it's in Reishis Chachma Shar Kedusha. Shekol Masha Adam Oichel Besudas Mitzvah. Anything the person eats at a Sudas Mitzvah or B'Yom Tov, Eino Nasarima. It doesn't turn into worms after he dies. V'Zeh Lo Shayach L'Doros Abam. And this is not pertinent to the subsequent generations. V'Oiptam. Another reason is Nami Aser Lahem Basar Taiva. Why they prohibit them to have the regular weekday meat. So the fish should dovku b'Hashem, should nidviku b'Hashem, me'mayim at Har Sinai. Like it says, v'atem advekim b'Hashem alekechem chaim kol chaim yaim. So they were all clinging to God at that time. Asur lahem b'basar kedei shelo yismashucha achar yetzer hara. So they wanted them not to eat the meat so that they wouldn't be drawn after the yetzer hara. She'ein ari noyam to pasuk, Gemara in Brachos, Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, that it says the Ein Ha'ari Noyam Elamitoich Kupa Shel Basar. The lion, it's a mushal, right? The lion is only roaring when he's got plenty of meat. Interesting, right? In other words, he's roaring because it's the mushal, the nimshal is complaining. So the more meat he has, the more he complains. V'zeu she'omarn darminan b'midrash yalkut. Remesh Tafshan Lamed Gimel Ala Pasuk and Bamidbar Mi Yachilenu. This is the pasuk we quoted. Mi Yachilenu Basar. Who's going to feed us the meat? Ki mipnei shelo hayu lohem basar hayu misra'amim. Because they didn't have meat, they were complaining. So they were trying to seek out an excuse. The fresh to separate from God. So what excuse do they want? And why dafka the meat is giving them the excuse to go away from God? Since God didn't permit them to eat regular meat, so that the Yitzhahara wouldn't want to be ruling over them. But they would have this taiva that they wanted the Yitzhahara to be ruling over them. They wanted to have a shtickle Yitzhahara, right? That was their excuse. Like they desired for, it's very strange, these random, the Torah tells us about the random vegetables that they wanted. Avatichim, kishuyim, right? Cucumbers and garlic. I mean, come on, they would have a taiva for garlic. Okay, like it said, because it's known. He said, "Shakishuyim heim moilidim chomriyos achriyos shebiseichel shel bnei adam." Because he said, I don't know where he gets this from. Maybe he knows from some source, but that the kishuyim, the cucumbers, are cause a person to have mixed up a materialistic brain. Maybe they had different types of kishuyim in those days. I don't know. I mean, the pickles we got, maybe, I can make you crazy. Don't know. Anyway, therefore he didn't want them to even taste them in the man, even though man could taste everything. You could taste anything you wanted it to, but not those. In order that they should remain pure and clean. But the Asafsu were looking for an excuse. They wanted to say, look, enough, we had enough of this God. They knew that the prohibition of the meat was when they were attached to God, and therefore they wanted to get detached. So, because that was only when they were attached to God they had the prohibition. So they figured, well, if we get detached a little bit, we don't have to be so frum. So we'll just eat a little bit of meat and hang around with the Yitzhahara, all right? No problem. Because they wanted to, the other people wanted to be attached, to continue the attachment to God at Maimed Har Sinai. Okay. So there's an interest. Finally, I got a segula from the Zera Shimshon. He says, our lives revolve around our families, and which is why helping our friends and neighbors with shidduchim may be the greatest chesed we can do. Now, consider this. A man who called me to inquire about the Sefer Zera Shimshon. I knew who he was, but the man did not know that I recognized his voice and had known him for years. Let the name be called Mr. Schwartzman, okay? Introducing himself, he said, I wanted to know about the Zera Shimshon. Can I ask you about the Sefer? Knowing Reb Mendel, I immediately knew why he was calling and the worry that was on his mind. He had a son in his mid-30s who was still unmarried and who had been searching for a shidduch for many years. The puzzling thing about the story was that the Bacher was actually a solid boy, not the most serious learner, but not the most serious learner in the yeshiva, but a ben Torah and a Yerushalayim. It was truly a sad case. The father was a major Talmid Chacham and a kind of man who loved repeating Vertlach from the Svarim that he studied. And I knew that he was exactly the kind of person who would connect to the Sefer. After he asked me a couple of questions about the Sefer, I told him that since he sounded like a Talmid Chacham, I was sure that he was going to really enjoy the Sefer and connect with it. But I have no patience for segulois, he said. I don't want segulois, I want testimonials. I want to hear about the people who saw Yeshuas. Okay, he was talking to me as though it was in my power to change his life and I needed to set him straight. Reb Mendel, I said, there are many people who have learned the Sefer and seen a Yeshua. But I want to make something very clear right now. I guarantee nothing. I have no power to make any guarantees to you, and nor would I ever dream of doing such a thing. Mechaber, the Sefer, wrote that he wrote what he wrote, and it happens to be that many, many people have been helped. Okay, I'm just serving as a shaliach, trying to help many people to find out about this tremendous gift, that's all. That's it. The Mechaber was a tzaddik, and you know yourself that when somebody goes out of his way to help a tzaddik, the tzaddik goes out of his way to repay his favor. That is just the way things work. The only thing I can say with complete confidence is that if you try your best to help a tzaddik, the tzaddik will do his best to help you in return. Okay, where do I get hold of the Sefer? So, there weren't many copies of the Sefer in the Eretz Yisrael at that time, and he said I could pick up a copy by my brother's house. So he called me a week later. He said, Rabbi Yisraeli, I want to tell you something. What's that? I decided that I want to put together a likud of the Zera Shimshon's pshatim on Sefer Tehillim. What prompted that decision? I'll tell you, he says. The same night that I picked up the Sefer from your brother's house, I took it to shul and learned it for a couple of hours. From the Sefer's opening lines, I found myself getting excited. You should know, I love Sforim, and the Zera Shimshon is a very sharp Sefer filled with extraordinary number of chedushim. I was enjoying it so much I couldn't stop learning. And very late that night, I was still steiging away. Well, I finally finished learning that at 11:30 that night. He was quiet. So for a few minutes, he paused. Rabbi Yisrael, my phone rang up a little bit before 12 o'clock. It was somebody calling to suggest a shidduch for my son. I have to be honest with you. This was the first shidduch that had been read to him in months. I immediately understood that it wasn't enough just to learn the Sefer, that I should also add my own twist for the Mechaber, above and beyond the actual learning. Okay, I met him 1 month later. Nu, what's happening with your Sefer? I asked, what's happening with your son? Yes, I'm working on it right now. And Baruch Hashem, my son is seriously involved in a shidduch now as well. We need to keep davening. I'm still learning the Sefer with Hasmada, especially since I'm putting so much time in putting together the likud on Tehillim. His son got engaged the following month. As for the father, whenever I see him, he sidles over to me and with a beautiful smile of gratitude to me and says, "You were right. There's something very special about that Sefer. There's something very special about the Zera Shimshon." Have a good Shabbos and a gesund Tavach, and everybody should be happy and learning the Zera Shimshon be'iyun. Okay, call to.